I mean, this is a country that is, you know, deeply rooted in racial systems and institutions. And while some of us may be able to reteach ourselves and get closer to humanity, and I need to care about this person because they are another human being, unfortunately there are some folks who don't, who have yet or simply will not make it to that opportunity to realize we have far more in common than we you know, have in opposition or difference than, you know, each other. There are folks who really latch on to that hate and racism. um, and again, I want to not just focus on racism, but I think, you know, as we talk about class and ability, language, there are lots of folks who find it easier to latch on to hating someone because they are different. But my prayer is that, you know, more of us continue to love, to say that this is another person just like me, another mom, another friend, another athlete, another, you know, entrepreneur, another student like me, who needs love, needs hope, needs encouragement. Those are things that we all have in common, but this country does a work on all of us. And so if we don't do the personal work, including me as a Black woman, I've raised in a country that upholds white supremacy. So I have to continue to, you know, unlearn those ways that I have been taught, whether directly or indirectly. I live in America, so racism and white supremacy do impact me on a daily basis, whether I know it or not. So I, along with all of you, if we're serious about it, simply have to do the work to unlearn what this country has told us about, you know, it being bad to be different, it being bad to have a darker skin tone, it being bad to have an accent, to speak a different language, to live in poverty, to not be successful in the way that this country defines success. But we have to say we are a community who has to stick together and simply try to do good for one another and for, you know, for each other.
I want to come back to that, but first, Professor Jane.
Thanks, Stan. And I join my colleague, Senator Noble. So sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
You know, I was reading about you, and it's mind boggling, really, what you have achieved given what you had experienced. And you shared with us your spirit about never giving up. I would like you to touch on what was the one thing that helped you when you were in college, outside of yourself? Person, support from the institution. What was the one thing and which you think all institutions of higher learning should adopt? Because we would like, we are here to learn, to understand, and also be part of the solution. So I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Thank you. Great question. Well, definitely the opportunities to socialize with each other. So whether that's clubs, whether it's athletics. I mean, I was a participant in the Black Student Union. I was on a cheer team at University of Puget Sound. And as I mentioned, played basketball at TCC. I also found it important to have spaces that focused on, diversity, or students who we know have been marginalized in this country, but to have a safe space to convene with others and fellowship with others and really talk about those grievances. But also my personality is one that is hopeful. So what I loved about when I was in college is being, especially as a Black woman, being exposed to some incredible opportunities. And some of my peers would say, they're only asking us because we're Black. And I'm like, I don't give a damn. I'm about to have dinner with Cornel West. So, I mean, like, I'm here for opportunity. Like, this is my college experience as well. And I'm not going to miss out on opportunities. And for me, just assume everything for me is about tokenism, but to look at opportunity. And I'm like, this is mutually beneficial. So, this college, when I went to University of Puget Sound, I mean, I think about experiences that scared the heck out of me, like going camping. I moved here from Alabama, and it's not something we did in Alabama as Black folks. So came to the University of Puget Sound, and having that exposure to the outdoors. But I think continue to push students out of their comfort zones, continue to expose students to the beauty of this state. And you know, colleges do it in the form of introducing students to content and education and programs, but also getting them off campus to experience things that some of us would have never experienced before, but they change our lives. As a graduate student, I got to go abroad to Naruto, Japan. I mean, exposing students, again, some students grow up traveling and have been to multiple countries. I traveled because my family was in the military and also because we just were completely unstable for so long. But some of those experiences from college really formed me, the people I was introduced to, the tables I was invited to, and it really did build my confidence. It made me feel like I took ownership of my college experience, but I think it contributed to me feeling like this is where I belong. Like, this is my college experience versus shrinking and thinking like, oh, I'm Black on this big white campus and I don't belong. I'm like, no, expand. This is where you belong. Go into these places, sit on these student committees, you know, be a great student representative, you know, as a cheerleader, being on the field, cheering on the home team. Like, this is a place where all of us students belong, especially students of color, but just providing as many opportunities to give us voice, to give us unique experiences, to allow us to be confident and to be decision makers. I think those were the things that changed the game. And that's why I'm still involved in my college campus. I didn't just exist for all those years. I was involved for all of those years. And that's something I will never let go. I'm on the alumni executive committee and I volunteer to speak with other students, but I think you have an incredible opportunity to capture students in these incredible experiences that they never want to depart from. And so then you have really involved alumni who will always give back.
Senator, we sure are glad that you're involved with us here, at the University of Washington, Tacoma and the Milgard School of Business. Something you said really hit. When I was growing up, I grew up in Tennessee, and so I know Tennessee is not a whole lot different than Alabama along the lines of what you were talking about. There were many times where I played basketball where I was the only white guy on the court, and we were all friends. But when we stepped off the court, the culture was such that being friends was hard. And sports kind of went along and accepted that for a long time, except this past year. I was super proud of professional athletes who stepped up. Are they going to stay stepped up, or is this just, a flash in the pan?
I think we're going to continue to see real change. And I want to speak to one other thing, because I grew up in, as I mentioned, Alabama, and the same thing. We had one high school where all the students in Alabama attended that high school, but our town was segregated. I grew up on the Black side of Alabama and my white peers on the white side of Alabama. And there would be, a few outliers who might live, but our town was very segregated. And I actually have a lot of appreciation for being exposed to Black culture and having deep roots in like my pride as a Black woman. And I think there was a lot, I want to say there was a lot of benefit in me seeing Black doctors and Black business owners. And sometimes what happens with, when there aren't spaces for, I'm a Black woman, so I'll just speak for me, but I think sometimes when there aren't spaces for me to see people who are like me, succeeding like me, doing things that I might want to do, it can be really harmful. So I'm not encouraging segregation, but I do want to continue to express the importance of people being with groups who are like them, safe spaces, places where they can build and learn confidence. And for me, growing up in a Black community was really important and helped me to become the woman that I am today, which is different than if I would have grown up predominantly or solely in the Pacific Northwest. But I do see a change in athletes feeling empowered. And many of you may know that I co-founded during COVID the Black Future Co-op Fund with 3 other friends and CEOs. And we are featured as the sponsor team on the OL Reign jersey. And that is their statement to community that they wanted to not even have a corporate sponsor, but do something different by um, elevating a nonprofit organization and a fund that's focused on Black wealth, health, and well-being. And I think we're going to continue to see those types of steps because the athletes know how important it is to use their platform to speak out and fight for justice. So I don't think we're going to go back to a way of like, it's all performative. It's just when the hashtag is, you know, the good thing to do. I think we're going to continue to see strong voices in athletics, and not just around anti-racism, but just fighting for justice and doing what's right, paying women athletes what they should be paid, investing in women athletics, making sure that, you know, there are healthy cultures, you know, for athletes, including men, because you know, we hear lots of stories about abuse or mistreatment, and when you trust someone who is in charge. And so I think folks are going to continue to speak up for gymnasts, for basketball players, for soccer players. Folks are going to continue to use their voice. So I don't think it's a fad. I think, you know, justice is here to stay.
Let's go to one of our superstar students, Mackenzie.
Hi, Mackenzie.
Hi, so I had a quick question. So I know you're pretty involved in the community and in sports and everything. So I guess one of my questions too, I kind of have a two-parter. One, what is it like being like endorsed by like Joe Biden and now having him be the president? And the other one was, what is your plan for anything to do with sports, if you have any, just kind of like within the community wise, and then for Washington themselves?
Great question. All I could think about with the Biden endorsement, and actually I was just looking through some old pictures, is like, I cannot believe that their teams were thinking about little old me here in, you know, the Pacific Northwest, but grateful that because of community elevating the importance of our campaign, and the importance of creating change by picking up this seat and flipping this seat, so many people were able to learn about the race from last year. And so I feel very grateful, but it is surreal when I look at pictures and to think that something that we're doing right here in our community made it to that level. And so, you know, anything is possible. And then honestly, as far as athletics, the one thing that I want right now is just to be at games, supporting my kids. My youngest, who just turned 10, he had his first football season this year. And so just making time to cheer him on. And his season was like right at the end of session. So I had some weekends to see his games. My daughter it's like cheer competition time. And while they're not competing in person, they just record their competition videos. I just want to cheer her on. And like I said, I'm heading to the OL Reign game this weekend, this Saturday. So I want to be in Cheney Stadium supporting my local teams, you know, socially distant. I'm vaccinated, got my COVID test today. But I just want to responsibly be cheering on as many people as possible, because that is something that we just have not had enough of in person this past year. So if I see you all, I mean, while I can't hug everybody just yet, I'm here to cheer on anybody who needs encouragement. And I'm just going to start with, you know, the field or the court or wherever I can show up for community.